think are good. I feel like I have this relationship with an audience, and
Kevin Costner has faced fame, fortune, failures, and public battles. But nothing shook his world as deeply as his recent divorce and the family turmoil that followed. His home life has been turned upside down, old wounds have resurfaced, and every part of his personal world has shifted. And now, in the middle of all this change, his daughter Annie, who grew up watching everything from the sidelines, has finally spoken out, revealing a shocking side of her father the public never saw coming. The man behind the fame. Kevin Costner is one of those rare Hollywood names that never really disappears. His films defined entire eras, his characters shaped popular culture, and his reputation as a classic American leading man carried him through decades of success. Yet behind the fame, the awards, and the larger-than-life roles, his personal life has been anything but steady. In recent years, his private world has shaken harder than ever. And now, one of his daughters has stepped forward to finally share what her father is really like away from the cameras. Kevin Costner didn't arrive in Hollywood with overnight success. He built his career one project at a time, starting with roles that slowly gained attention. His breakout came in the late 1980s when he appeared in The Untouchables. The film proved he could anchor a major crime drama and stand beside veterans like Sean Connery and Robert De Niro without being overshadowed. From there, everything began to move quickly. In 1988, he starred in Bull Durham, which became one of the most beloved sports comedies of its time. Then came Field of Dreams in 1989. That movie became a cultural moment, a film people still quote and reference decades later. Costner's performance made audiences believe in the emotional pull of nostalgia, family, and second chances. At that point, he wasn't just a rising actor anymore. He was the face of a new wave of American storytelling. But the biggest turning point of his career was yet to come. In 1990, he directed and starred in Dances with Wolves. The film wasn't just successful, it became a phenomenon. It won 2 Academy Awards, including Best Director and Best Picture, putting Costner in a category most actors never reach. Hollywood suddenly saw him as a powerhouse who could lead films, direct them, and deliver projects that critics and audiences both loved. This made him one of the most bankable stars of the early 1990s. Across his career, Costner has earned 3 Golden Globe Awards and 1 Primetime Emmy, proof of how deeply he influenced both film and television. But the higher someone rises in Hollywood, the harder they fall when things shift. And Kevin Costner's fall was loud. The mid-90s delivered a hit to his career that still gets discussed today. In 1995, he starred in Waterworld, a movie that became famous for its enormous budget, around $172 to $175 million. Production challenges, weather disasters, and behind-the-scenes conflicts pushed the film into chaotic territory. Even though it eventually made around $264 million worldwide, the damage to Costner's reputation was immediate. Hollywood labeled it an ego-driven project, the kind that cost too much and delivered too little. Costner was suddenly seen as someone who took dangerous creative risks, and the industry wasn't gentle with him. 2 years later, The Postman arrived in 1997, and the situation grew worse. The film was widely criticized and is often counted among the biggest flops of the decade. The back-to-back disappointments hit his career hard. Studios became hesitant, and the streak of dominance he once held in the early 90s faded quickly. Costner spent the late 90s trying to regain momentum while facing doubts from both audiences and Hollywood insiders. In 2003, he directed and starred in Open Range, a Western that critics praised for its authenticity and strong storytelling. It reminded audiences that Costner understood the genre better than most actors of his generation. The film performed well and slowly rebuilt confidence in his abilities behind the camera. Still, the biggest resurgence of his career came from an unexpected place: television. In 2018, he joined the cast of Yellowstone, a modern Western series that exploded into a cultural phenomenon. Viewers connected instantly with the story, the tone, and Costner's portrayal of John Dutton, a role that reintroduced him to an entirely new generation. The show helped revive his name in mainstream entertainment and reminded people why he became a star in the first place. But success didn't come without controversy. Costner faced criticism throughout the years for taking on ambitious, expensive projects that many believed were driven more by ego than practicality. His business ventures, including his casino projects, also created financial and legal headaches. And in 2023 and 2024, his departure from Yellowstone turned into a public dispute, with conflicting statements from the studio, the show's creators, and Costner himself. The drama played out in headlines for months, adding a new layer of tension to the actor's already complicated public image. But for all the fame he has earned and the storms he has survived, Kevin Costner's private life has always been far more complicated. Behind the charm is a history of strained relationships and difficult choices, and it all began with a first marriage that unraveled into years of public heartbreak. First marriage to Cindy Silva. Before Kevin Costner became a household name, before the awards and the blockbuster roles, he was just a young college student at California State University, Fullerton. That's where he met Cindy Silva in the 1970s. She wasn't part of Hollywood or the entertainment world at the time. She was simply someone who believed in him long before anyone else did. Their relationship began quietly, built on long conversations, shared plans, and the kind of support that kept them steady when they had nothing but hope to work with. By 1978, they were married, confident they were stepping into a future they would build together. Their early years were far from glamorous. Kevin was still trying to find his place in the industry, taking small roles, working side jobs, and trying to create a foundation for a career he wasn't sure would take off. Cindy stood beside him through all of it. She even worked as a Disney princess performer to help support them financially. That job became an important part of their story, because it showed how committed she was to keeping their household stable while Kevin focused on acting. As the years moved forward, their family began to grow. Their first daughter, Annie, was born in 1984. 2 years later, Lily arrived in 1986, and their son Joe followed in 1988. Costner often said that becoming a father changed the way he viewed everything, and those early family years were among the most grounded moments of his life. He and Cindy created a home filled with routine and stability, even while he pushed forward in an industry known for unpredictability. For a while, they balanced everything well: Kevin's growing opportunities, Cindy's steady support, and their 3 young children. But once his career exploded with films like The Untouchables, Bull Durham, Field of Dreams, and eventually Dances with Wolves, the pace of their life changed drastically. Hollywood demanded his time, attention, and physical presence, and the strain of those long absences began to show. He traveled constantly, spent months on film sets, and took on projects that kept him away from home for extended periods. Cindy found herself managing the household alone, raising the children while Kevin tried to maintain the momentum of a skyrocketing career. As his fame increased, the pressures around him grew even heavier. Film sets, interviews, press tours, and the enormous expectations placed on one of the most popular actors of the era created distance between the couple. Cindy went from supporting Kevin during his early struggles to feeling the weight of a lifestyle that required sacrifices she never signed up for. Meanwhile, Kevin tried to balance being a committed father with being a global superstar, a task nearly impossible to manage without something slipping through the cracks. By the early 90s, the strain had become impossible to ignore. Their marriage, once steady and private, became stretched by the realities of fame. In 1994, after 16 years together, they announced their separation. Hollywood immediately took notice, not only because Costner was at the height of his career, but also because the divorce eventually became one of the most expensive in the industry. Reports at the time estimated the settlement at around $80 million, a number that stunned the public and added even more attention to a situation that was already painful for the family. The reasons for the split were handled quietly, without dramatic public accusations. Most sources attributed the breakup to the same challenges they had been facing for years: Kevin's demanding career, the constant travel, and the lifestyle differences that grew between them. Cindy had built her life around family and stability, while Kevin was living inside a non-stop schedule that required everything he had. Even after the divorce, both Kevin and Cindy remained focused on their children. They worked hard to maintain a respectful co-parenting relationship, and Kevin continued to speak highly of Cindy's role in his early life and career. But Kevin's personal life didn't stay quiet for long. After the marriage ended, a new relationship began, and once again, it quickly caught public attention, leading to a turning point that would change his family dynamic forever: the Bridget Rooney romance. After Kevin Costner's divorce from Cindy Silva, his personal life entered a new chapter that unfolded quietly at first, but quickly became one of the most talked about moments of his private world. During the mid-1990s, he began a short relationship with Bridget Rooney, a woman whose family name carried enormous weight. Bridget was an heiress to the Rooney family, best known as the longtime owners of the Pittsburgh Steelers. She grew up surrounded by business influence, a sports legacy, and a level of visibility that matched Costner's in a very different way. Their romance wasn't built on red carpets or public appearances. It happened during a period when Kevin was trying to recalibrate his life after a difficult, high-profile divorce and a career that was shifting in unpredictable directions. At the same time, Bridget preferred a more private lifestyle, which allowed the relationship to stay quiet for a while. They were rarely photographed together, rarely discussed by the press, and didn't offer public statements. But in 1996, everything changed. Bridget gave birth to a son, Liam, and the attention surrounding the relationship grew almost immediately. The news placed Costner back into headlines, but this time it wasn't about movies or awards. It was about family. At first, there was uncertainty surrounding Liam's paternity. Bridget maintained that Kevin was the father, and after a paternity test confirmed it, Costner acknowledged Liam and took responsibility. He provided financial support and later created a trust fund to ensure Liam had long-term stability. While the public treated the story as another dramatic Hollywood moment, Bridget and Kevin kept things steady and handled the situation without conflict. Even though their romance had already begun to fade by the time Liam was born, they approached co-parenting with clarity and respect. Costner didn't deny his role as Liam's father, and Bridget ensured that their son remained grounded and protected from unnecessary attention. It wasn't a relationship filled with scandal or ongoing disputes, but a brief connection that resulted in a child they both cared about. Sadly, the relationship itself didn't last. The romance came to an end shortly after Liam's birth. There were no explosive headlines or dramatic interviews about why things ended. It simply ran its course during a hectic time in Costner's life, when he was juggling career pressures, financial responsibilities, and the aftermath of a major divorce. Bridget moved forward as well, eventually marrying billionaire Bill Koch, a member of the well-known Koch family. Her life shifted into a different circle entirely, built around business, philanthropy, and the privacy she valued. As for Costner, Liam became part of his larger blended family. Kevin continued building his relationship with his son through the years, even while managing the demands of work and the challenges of being a public figure. Liam grew up mostly outside the spotlight, a choice that both parents seemed to prefer. Though the romance between Kevin and Bridget was short, it marked an important moment in Costner's life that reshaped his family and added another layer to the complicated story of his personal world. And while the Bridget Rooney chapter didn't last long, the next phase of Kevin Costner's life was far more public, far more intense, and eventually far more turbulent. It involved a woman who stood beside him through career shifts, controversies, and major comebacks, until everything fell apart in one of Hollywood's most unexpected breakups: Kevin Costner and Christine Baumgartner. By the late 90s, Kevin Costner's personal life had gone through several changes, and his career was moving in unpredictable directions. It was during this period that he crossed paths with Christine Baumgartner, a former model and handbag designer. They first met years earlier, but it wasn't until 1998 that they began dating. Christine was younger, ambitious in her own field, and someone who understood the demands of public life without being consumed by it. Their connection grew steadily, and for the first time in a long while, Costner seemed ready to build something stable again. Their relationship lasted through Costner's career, ups and downs, through busy schedules, and through the adjustments that came with blending personal and professional responsibilities. After several years together, they decided to take the next step. In September 2004, they married at Kevin's Aspen Ranch, a sprawling property known as the Dunbar. The location gave the ceremony an intimate, scenic setting, but the wedding itself was far from quiet. Guests arrived over several days, events were planned from morning to night, and the celebration quickly earned the nickname Wedding of the Year. Hollywood watched closely as Costner, one of the biggest stars of the 90s, settled into what looked like a solid, long-term partnership. Over the next few years, Kevin and Christine welcomed 3 children together. Their son Caden was born in 2007, Hayes arrived in 2009, and their daughter Grace was born in 2010. Costner often spoke about how becoming a father again in his 50s gave him a different outlook on family life. He was more patient, more focused on being present, and eager to balance work with raising young kids. Christine was deeply involved in their day-to-day life, and for a long time, the family projected a picture of stability and teamwork. They spent time between Aspen and Santa Barbara, keeping their children's lives structured and private, despite Kevin's continued fame. For more than a decade, their marriage appeared steady from the outside. Costner maintained a busy schedule, especially as his career found new life, while Christine managed her businesses and focused on raising their children. There were the usual challenges of a high-profile marriage, but nothing that hinted at the storm that would suddenly arrive in 2023. In May of that year, Christine Baumgartner shocked the public by filing for divorce after 18 years of marriage. The announcement came without warning and quickly became one of the biggest entertainment headlines of the year. For fans who had watched Costner's family life from a distance, the news felt abrupt, and behind the scenes, the separation immediately turned complicated. The legal proceedings that followed were highly public and often tense. Child support became the first major point of conflict. Christine initially requested $161,000 per month, explaining that it reflected the lifestyle their children were accustomed to. Costner and his legal team argued that the number was excessive and that the court should calculate a more realistic figure. After reviewing financial records, expenses, and both sides' statements, the judge ultimately reduced the amount to $63,000 per month, a decision that became one of the most widely reported details of the case. Property arrangements were another major issue. Christine was required to leave Costner's home as part of their prenup, and after the ruling, she moved to a $40,000 per month rental in Santa Barbara. The cost alone became a headline, but it reflected the standard of living the couple maintained during their marriage. Even with the move, Christine stayed near the family's existing community to keep the children's routines stable. The divorce was finalized in February 2024, closing one of the most public chapters of Costner's personal life. Both sides eventually reached a settlement that kept the details private, though the early stages played out heavily in the media. Reports at the time cited irreconcilable differences and lifestyle conflicts as the core reasons for the split. Costner's demanding schedule, the commitments tied to his career, and the pressures of balancing work with family life were issues frequently mentioned by sources close to the couple. Their story was not a Hollywood breakup filled with dramatic accusations or public fighting, but a long marriage that slowly cracked under the weight of busy careers, changing priorities, and the strain that comes with raising a family under constant public attention. But because Costner was in the middle of a massive career resurgence, the divorce carried even more impact. Fans saw a man juggling enormous professional pressure while trying to keep his personal life from collapsing at the same time. The end of their marriage marked a turning point for Costner. For nearly 20 years, Christine had been part of his public and private world, and the breakup forced him to reassess everything from his work schedule to where he wanted to live. It became one of the most impactful changes in his adult life, right alongside his early career struggles and the major shifts that defined his time in Hollywood. And as the divorce settled and the headlines slowed down, a new question emerged. What does life look like for Kevin Costner now? With a long marriage behind him, a revived career, and a rapidly changing personal world, the next chapter became just as unpredictable as anything he had faced before. Life after the divorce. Once Kevin Costner's divorce from Christine Baumgartner was finalized, he stepped into a chapter that felt unfamiliar and unsteady. After nearly 20 years of marriage, the shift hit him hard, and he had to rely on the people who mattered most: His children, they became a major source of support while he tried to rebuild his personal routine and keep his focus steady. He didn't hide the fact that the divorce was painful, but he made it clear he wasn't going to let the chaos pull him off course. Instead of withdrawing, he pushed himself deeper into work and stayed committed to the things that grounded him. That determination showed up in one of the biggest creative moves of his career. Costner poured years of planning and $38 million of his own money into his passion project, Horizon, an American saga. It was more than a film for him. It became a way to channel stress, stay productive, and use storytelling to move forward. The scale of the project surprised many people, especially since he was financing such a large portion himself, but Costner treated it as the next major step of his life, not a gamble he was afraid to take. While Kevin pushed ahead, Christine Baumgartner moved forward with her own personal changes. In January 2025, she became engaged to financier Josh Connor, someone she had reportedly grown close to in the months after the divorce. Their relationship became public quickly, and although it made headlines, Christine stayed focused on maintaining stability for her children and adjusting to her new life in Santa Barbara. She wasn't trying to return to the spotlight. Her goal was simply to rebuild her world on her own terms. For Kevin, the years after the divorce became some of the busiest of his career. He took Horizon to the Cannes Film Festival in 2024, a major milestone that marked a new chapter for him as both a director and storyteller. The film symbolized his renewed creative energy and showed that he wasn't slowing down despite everything happening in his personal life. He balanced the project with raising his younger children, managing school schedules, time at home, and long days on production sets. Even with the pressure of filmmaking and public attention, Costner focused heavily on fatherhood. Friends and sources close to him said he rearranged his schedule around his kids as much as possible, especially during school breaks and important family events. The divorce had forced him to reevaluate how he spent his time, and he wanted to make sure his children felt secure through all of the changes. Life after the divorce didn't settle overnight. It became a mix of film commitments, parenting, travel, and personal adjustments. But through all of it, one unexpected voice began to shape the public's understanding of Kevin Costner's private world. His daughter, Annie. Annie Costner's revelations. Annie Costner has always been one of the quietest members of the Costner family, but she's also one of the closest to Kevin's world. Born on April 15, 1984, she grew up during the peak of her father's stardom, watching his career explode while their home life stayed busy, unpredictable, and filled with constant movement. Unlike many celebrity children, Annie didn't fade into the background. She built her own path in entertainment as an actress, producer, and director, creating a career that connected her to her father in ways most fans never realized. Her earliest experiences in Hollywood came directly through Kevin's work. She appeared in two of his major films, Dances with Wolves in 1990 and Waterworld in 1995. They were small roles, but they gave her a front-row seat to the intensity of filmmaking. Annie wasn't just watching a movie star. She was watching her dad manage huge sets, complicated productions, and non-stop pressure. Those early experiences shaped her understanding of storytelling, and they became the foundation for the career she built as an adult. Instead of chasing acting roles, Annie moved behind the camera. She became a producer and director, focusing on documentaries and environmental projects. She and Kevin eventually worked together on several films, and their partnership surprised people who expected a typical celebrity parent and child dynamic. Annie later explained that Kevin didn't treat her like an assistant or someone tagging along. He treated her as a professional equal, trusting her judgment and leaning on her ideas. In interviews over the years, Annie has spoken openly about the influence her father had on her work ethic and values. She credited him with encouraging her creative pursuits from the beginning, pushing her to think big and follow her own instincts. She also described the example he set at home, especially during periods when he was at his busiest. According to Annie, Kevin always emphasized one rule: family comes first, no matter how demanding the career becomes. It's something she said that shaped both her childhood and her adult life. For a long time, that was all Annie ever shared publicly. Professional praise, warm personal stories, and the kind of perspective you expect from someone who grew up around fame. But recently, she opened up about something much more personal. Now in her 40s, Annie revealed that she found herself dealing with a period of emotional and mental pressure, a kind of midlife crisis that caught her off guard. She didn't describe it in dramatic terms, but she was honest about the feeling of being overwhelmed. Between career responsibilities, personal expectations, and the everyday challenges of adulthood, she reached a point where she needed a break from her routine. Annie explained that she wasn't unhappy with her life, but she needed space to breathe and figure out what direction she wanted to move toward next. To reset, Annie chose to travel, something she hadn't done for herself in a long time. She spent time in France, moving between quiet towns, coastal areas, and cultural landmarks. She described the trip as a chance to step away from obligations and reconnect with what made her feel grounded. The change of scenery, the slower pace, and the distance from work helped her relieve stress and regain clarity. She said that being away from home, even temporarily, gave her room to reflect without feeling pulled in a dozen directions. In a social media post, she said, "I was, in retrospect, battling some midlife demons, but I knew I needed something. I'm thankful I trusted my gut and took the trip because it was absolutely the spark to remind me who I was and am. I jumped into work as soon as I got back, and this last year just burst wide open for me. Everything unfolded as it should have." Annie Costner has always been viewed as the composed, steady daughter, the one who worked hard, stayed private, and kept her personal life out of the spotlight. And so, hearing her talk about stress, pressure, and needing to step back showed she wasn't immune to the challenges that come with adulthood, no matter who her father is. Her recent openness also gave fans a clearer look at how the Costner family operates behind the scenes. They may be surrounded by fame, but they deal with the same emotional struggles as anyone else. What do you think about Kevin Costner's recent divorce? Drop your answers in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.